It all started 37,000 feet in the air, but the fallout would shake the ground far below. When Marcus Ellison boarded Flight 792 from New York to San Francisco, he wasn't just a man in a suit. He was the founder and CEO of one of the fastest-growing fintech startups in the country, a self-made millionaire, and a keynote speaker scheduled to address a sold-out tech summit in Silicon Valley the following morning. But on that plane, none of that seemed to matter. As he settled into his first-class seat, 3A window side, he smiled at the attendant who passed by. "Good evening," he said warmly. She didn't respond. Not a nod. Not a smile. Just a glance. Sharp and dismissive like a blade. He thought little of it at first. People have bad days. Maybe hers had just started badly. But then came the dinner service. It was a long flight, and Marcus, like everyone else in the front cabin, had pre-selected his meal. Grilled salmon with lemon herb risotto. He watched as the attendant served. The man in 1A his meal, then 1B, then 2A and 2B. She got to 3B, the elderly white gentleman next to Marcus, and handed him his meal with a smile. Then she looked at Marcus. Her expression soured slightly, as if something about his presence offended her. "Sorry," she said without meeting his eyes. "We've run out of salmon. You'll have to take the vegetarian pasta." Marcus blinked. "That's strange. I pre-ordered. The salmon like everyone else." "It's not available anymore," she replied curtly, already turning away. He noticed her skipping over 4A and 4B entirely and heading to the galley. The seats behind his were occupied by two white business travelers, who hadn't yet been served. A few minutes later, he watched her return with 2 more trays of salmon and hand them to the passengers behind him. A cold silence settled in his chest. He turned to the gentleman beside him. "Did you pre-order the salmon?" he asked. "No," the man replied casually. "Didn't even know we could. She just asked what I wanted, and I picked that." Marcus sat back in his seat, hands clasped in his lap. He wasn't angry. Not yet. He was stunned. Stunned not just by the act, but by how brazen it was. In 2025. In a country where he'd worked twice as hard for half the recognition, only to still be seen as less. He thought of his mother, a teacher in Detroit who raised him and his 2 siblings on a single salary. She used to say, "Son, people will try to write your story for you. Make sure you bring your own pen." So Marcus didn't yell, he didn't curse. He pulled out his phone and began to write. By the time the plane landed, his post had gone live on LinkedIn. It read, "Today at 37,000 feet, I was reminded that no amount of success shields you from prejudice. A flight attendant decided that I didn't deserve the meal I had pre-selected and instead gave it to others. She looked at me and made a choice based not on policy, but on perception. I didn't confront her. I didn't cause a scene. I chose instead to document, to reflect, and to act. Because this isn't just about a meal, it's about dignity. If you think racism is a relic of the past, think again. I run a company with over 300 employees, serve on 4 boards, and mentor countless young people of color. But to her, I was just the black guy in 3A. Let's keep building a world where people are seen for who they are, not what someone assumes at a glance." By the time Marcus got to his hotel, the Post had over 80,000 shares. By the next morning, it was trending globally. His inbox was flooded with messages. From executives, celebrities, parents, even airline employees who shared similar stories. The airline, now caught in a public relations firestorm, issued a statement the following afternoon. It was cold, clinical, and full of corporate jargon. "We take these allegations seriously," it read. "We are conducting an internal review. No apology, no accountability." Marcus didn't stop there. The following week, he announced the launch of a new initiative, Flight Forward, a nonprofit dedicated to fighting racial bias in the travel industry. Within days, he secured over $5 million in seed funding. The organization would work to train flight crews in implicit bias, support passengers who reported discrimination, and publish yearly audits on airline equity practices. Media outlets picked up the story, not because a CEO had been disrespected, but because of what he did next. Marcus became a symbol, not just of injustice, but of transformation. He didn't just speak truth to power. He built power. 3 months later, that same airline invited him to consult on diversity training programs. He declined. Instead, he shared his response on another post that would go just as viral. "You don't get to call me for cleanup after. You've spilled your bias. Call the people you ignored. Call the ones who don't have a platform or followers. Train your staff for them, not for me. I'm already seen. Fight for the ones who aren't." The video of Marcus at the tech summit, standing tall in a navy suit, delivering his keynote speech with fire in his voice and pain in his heart, became a sensation. But it was his final line that sealed the moment in history. "They tried to deny me a meal. I gave it to millions instead, in the form of justice." The audience rose in thunderous applause. In a world that so often tries to shrink people to labels and assumptions, Marcus Ellison didn't just rise above. He rose, through, and took thousands with him. Let that be the meal they never saw coming.